Welcome to Paranormal Gateway Paratalk. Special guest tonight is Brad Blair, author of Paranormal Justice, Hauntings, Cryptids, and the Court of Law, and many other novels pertaining to paranormal. He's a veteran, international speaker, and researcher of all things strange. Brad has heard a passion for unusual since childhood. Growing up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, Brad spent his days exploring regional legends and folklore, investigating claims of cryptic creatures, miraculous sightings, psychic phenomena, ghosts, and hauntings. Brad has investigated haunted and stigmatized locations throughout North America and beyond, including England, Cuba, and Romania. He has contributed to many publications and documentaries on paranormal as co-founder of Michigan Paranormal Convention and Upper Peninsula Paranormal Society, is co-host of Creaking Door Paranormal Radio. So without ado, let's welcome back to the show.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me on.
Good. I see you're enjoying a warm cup of coffee with that.
Hot tea tonight. Yeah, here in I'm right up on the Canadian border in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, right in the Upper Peninsula, and winter has been winter this year. We are. If you can see out my back window here, that's not a shade. That is snow. It's about 4 foot right now deep.
Holy shit.
Oh yeah, no, we when we do winter up here, we do winter. So
you don't screw around.
no, we don't. No, we don't. And I'll
Oh,
apologize right
yeah.
now if you hear snowmobiles whipping by out here
Oh,
because
God.
it's that time of year, and we have it's the International 500 snowmobile race going on here in town this coming Saturday. But they have time trials, and there's all kinds of people around this week for it. So you may catch a little buzzing noise going by the window out there, and that's what it'll be.
Yeah, so we have a snowblower?
Oh yeah. Snowblower, plenty of shovels. We've got a plow guy that comes by. Thank God,
No,
because no, this winter
uh,
has been it's an average winter, I guess, for us. It's what I grew up in around
yeah,
here, and having
yeah,
having the winters like this really kind of contributed, I guess, to my interest in the
yeah.
paranormal. It was just you've got those long nights, where the sun's down by 4:30 or so, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
see any light until about 8. And as a kid growing up around here, and my good friends Tim Ellis and Steve LaPlante, who I co-founded our group, the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society, with, we grew up as kids together. We'd been friends since the first grade, and you'd have those 4 or 5 months in the winter that it's just brutally cold and you're stuck inside a lot. So we were kind of the creepier kids that we loved getting together in the winter, and we would have sleepovers or just get-togethers that we'd sit and tell ghost stories. And we'd get to the library whenever we could, and we'd check out anything on cryptozoology, on
Mm-hmm.
UFOs, and of course any books on ghosts and hauntings. We loved
Oh,
as
yeah.
kids. So we'd get with other kids from school and in the neighborhood, and we'd sit in the dark, and depending whose house we were at, there might be a fire going in the background, or we'd be in a basement, and we'd sit and tell ghost stories. And that kind of just, we spurred each other on, to the point where the paranormal became part of our lives. And we hit that high school age where everybody got our driver's licenses, and we'd start exploring old graveyards and throw a Ouija
uh,
board in the car and head out to abandoned houses. So,
mm-hmm.
I mean, but a lot of it, I think, really does go back to being in such an extreme climate at times. You're stuck inside and you're looking for things to do
Right.
and ways to entertain each other. And of course, we're going back. I don't want to say how far back, but we didn't have the internet, and we had 12 channels on the television back when we were kids growing up.
Like,
Uh,
you gotta be about my age. I'll say it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, no,
I'm 56. How are you?
I'm 51. So
Yeah, I got you.
you got me by a couple years, Scott, not too many. But yeah, growing up back in that generation too, in the late 70s and through the 80s, and really, I guess until more of the early 2000s, when the reality TV show boom took off for paranormal, there was nothing out there except, and you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure, Scott, except for Halloween time. The month
Right.
of October
Right.
was that was the time we looked forward to, because you'd have, Ed and Lorraine Warren would be popping on
Yeah.
talk shows, and Hans Holzer, Lloyd Auerbach, all of these, real
Yeah.
the older people in the
Yeah.
field that would come on. But outside of that, you didn't have 24/7 where you could turn TV on and stream a show on the
Right.
paranormal. They just,
Right.
outside of a few shows like Sightings, I don't know if you ever caught
Oh
that.
yeah. Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Those kind of
Yeah.
shows that were out there in syndication. But besides that, October was the time we looked forward to. And of course, that led right into winter and kind of the creepy time. So we'd have that follow over where we'd just try and keep the Halloween mood going as long as we could.
But, back then, I just even use the library got stuff from like the call, but they didn't have much track then. But you go to the library now, there's like hundreds of books that you can get on that now.
Yeah.
So I mean, and back then, they could well, what do you do? I go to Goobstein or paranormal investigating, and like, what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and back then you had like you had a DVR camera when I started. You had
Mhm.
the big VHS tape holders, the
Yep.
camera, and then plus you had the VCRs you had to go for evidence with.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That 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 wasn't too much fun.
When we started out here too, it was, like I said, pre-reality television days. The whole
Hmm.
field was different. I don't think people, especially younger people getting into the field now, can appreciate what it was like. Because I mean, we did all of our research as kids, checking out book after book at the library, and I'm glad we did. I really got into reading then, and just
Hmm.
the research aspect of things, which I use nowadays, whenever I'm working on any type of writing project. You didn't just Google it and hope you had something that was accurate pop up. It the truth can
Hmm.
slide anymore, especially when you're pulling things up online. But no, going to the library, doing that, and when we were, like I said, Tim, Steve, and I that started our organization, uh, we all went away to college after high school, and we all ended up back here in our hometown of Sault Ste. Marie with careers. So that's when we said, we've got to get a little more serious if we're going to do this. We can't go run through abandoned houses anymore without getting arrested.
Right.
It's not
Right.
it's not the high school kids up to no good anymore. Now
Oh,
we're
okay.
adults.
Well,
So
once you get 18, you gotta be careful. Now you're an
exactly.
adult.
Exactly. So no, we founded our group, and like I said, kind of like you'd go in and tell people you were investigating hauntings, and they'd look at you like Tim likes to say, we got looked at like we had two heads,
Yeah.
and that was. And if somebody got a hold of you to come in, they seriously thought they had some type of haunting activity. Where once the TV shows took off, it kind of got to be to that point where people were thrill seekers and they wanted
Hmm.
to think their house was haunted, and they would call us in. But yeah, I can remember our first few years investigating. We had the VHS camcorders, we had cassette recorders that we would
Yeah.
bring in, the 30 minutes and then flip the tape over and
Yeah.
record for 30 minutes. Just the big clunky, and half of it was borrowed from friends. We had no budget to go out and buy
Uh,
equipment, and there weren't places like Ghost Stop out there, for one example, now that were
yeah.
constructing equipment specifically for paranormal research. So we're out borrowing our cousins' video cameras, and we had some cassette recorders, different pieces of equipment that we would bring into the field. But God, I mean, you look back then versus nowadays, how things really kind of took that big jump,
Yeah.
and a lot of it was due, and we always say it's a double-edged sword, the whole reality television genre, because some people get the wrong ideas about what you're doing. They have their time to edit the shows, and they're
Right. Right.
recording in places for 4 days to a week. So
Hmm.
it looks like they're going in one night getting all this activity, where as well as I do, you can sit for hours and hours and have nothing happen. So
Right.
yeah, it's kind of a different world now, and good, for the good and the bad. I guess the better part, from our standpoint anyway, going in, is it's a little more acceptable now than it was 25 years ago when we
Right.
started doing it as a professional
Right.
group.
Well, also, like you're saying about your friend starting off, the guys in my group for those 12 to 15 years, we met in seventh grade. So we were friends there then.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, so we had a lot of fun doing that. So,
That's one of the great things for us. It was something the guys could still go do together. I mean, we were all married, and it was an excuse to get away from the house for
right,
the night, just
right,
go out and hang
right,
out. But the other thing too, with having people that you've been with that long, you can trust them.
right,
And in this field, you get a lot of jump scares from people that they
right,
think they heard something, and you know did they experience this? I can go out with these two guys and another guy in our group, Lance, who's our head tech guy, was also with us in elementary school on. And I know I can trust these guys if they say they're seeing or hearing something.
right,
I
right.
I take their word for it. And you can't do that with everybody in the field.
No,
you know,
you got to be careful with team members, but it's sad to say.
yeah,
We're still with the way with Photoshop and you got the After Effects stuff, and it kind of when I came around, I had to be careful. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, and we've gone through a number of people that have came and went through the years, and like I said, people don't realize watching the reality shows is not how a real investigation goes.
mhm,
Yeah, the setup, the tear down, everything in between, but like I said, you can sit for an entire night, for an entire weekend, and catch nothing.
yeah,
And once people come into investigations and realize that, all of a sudden it's not as exciting anymore. So we're lucky. We've had a great core group for many, many years, and we're still doing it
yeah,
today. Not quite as often as we used to. Yeah,
right,
Tim and Steve co-authored the first book we did together, Supernatural Haunts. That was about our first 20 years of investigations. Uh, and Tim and I have a Great Lakes Monsters and Mysteries book out that we go a little more towards the cryptid side of things on, and we do a lot more in the background nowadays, I guess, than being out in the field as much. But
hmm,
we still love to get out when we can and do we do a handful of investigations a year still. It's not like we're sitting around on our hands, but not like it was at one point in time. Back when ghost hunters hit in the early 2000s, and it was such a phenomenal, the acceptance of that show, which I didn't think would happen. I remember seeing the commercial on Sci-Fi Network for Ghost Hunters, this
hmm,
new show coming, and I can remember calling Tim and Steve and saying, "Oh my God, they're trying to put a show on Sci-Fi
hmm,
about paranormal researchers. This is going to flop so bad."
yeah,
Because, like I said, you sit there and there's a lot of downtime where nothing's going on. But through the magic of editing, that took off so huge.
yeah,
And we ended up I guess after they were out for a couple of seasons, the TAPS group got so inundated that they started what they called the TAPS family group,
hmm,
where they'd have different teams in different states that they could forward cases to. And we ended up being the Michigan TAPS family team for a number of years. And it was kind of fun at first because they were feeding us all of these cases. And what happened 9 out of 10 times, somebody would send in a case to TAPS. They would forward it on to us here in the UP of Michigan, and we would get a hold of them and say, "Hey, we got your case. We'd like to get some more information. Can we schedule a time for an interview?" And
hmm,
once they found out Jason and Grant weren't showing up with a television crew, radio silence. You never heard a word back from them.
right,
All of a sudden, their haunting wasn't anywhere near as extreme as they thought.
right,
And it was people looking, and it's the nature of the beast. People looking for some publicity, and just thought it was such a neat show that they wanted to get the TAPS crew in there. And when they found out it wasn't Jason and Grant from TAPS, but it was Brad and Tim and Steve from the UP of Michigan, they weren't quite as interested anymore.
yeah. We're in the first few years. There are a lot of residential cases, and we got an email from Discovery Channel once and wanted to see if we were doing a show. I'm like,
Yeah.
so we look into it, and we're like, we explained that we'll go to these places and everything, but we'll spend a few days there or whatever, get or review anything. Then we're gonna do a show about it, not getting anything. well, never about this.
Yeah, yeah.
God, we
We
don't feel it that way,
we
because you don't always get stuff.
No, no, and that's like we always tell clients when we go in, we have your list of what you've been experiencing. We're going to go through, and luckily we have an engineer and a mechanic on the team, and we're going to go through. We're going to check all of your appliances if it's a house, your wiring. We're going to
Oh
go
yeah,
through, and we're going to put together basically a maintenance report before we
yeah,
come in, and we just
and
warn them.
yeah,
We can try to call up if there's a presence, and through EVP and through different types of transcommunication, but we can't guarantee it. And there's those nights that nothing happens. So, and we've dealt with the TV pitches before on a few occasions.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think the first, which was we were very green and very naive about how the background on production groups worked, and we were going back and forth with this company out of LA. We were doing Skype interviews. We did 3 or 4, and they were really liking the way things were going. They always tell you that. And
Hmm.
we got up to December, and the lady we were working with, I believe she was a production, so some type of an assistant, but she was going back and forth with us, and we kind of had a rapport going, and we felt good about it. And she said, "We're going to take a break for the holidays. Nothing happens in LA during December. Let's reconvene that first week in January when we get back to work and you guys have had your downtime." And we're like, "Yeah, okay, sounds great." And we're getting hyped, and they're talking about sending a film crew in, and we were going to film a sizzle reel. And we get back from the holidays. And granted, we had only ever talked about doing investigations in northern Michigan, and they really wanted to play off our 4 seasons, how cold it is in the winter, but how beautiful things are in the Great Lakes region in the summer months, and that we have the distinct seasons and the different challenges that can come with investigating in these different weathers. We're like, "Yeah, this is going to be wonderful. We've got all this experience." So she reaches back out to us after the holidays and said, "Well, we love you guys. We love your team. Production wants to go a little bit different way though with this. How would you feel if, you go out, you do all the research, you get the information, and then when you go into the location to investigate, you investigate naked?"
Oh my.
And we were just blown away. We said, we all have professional careers in this area. That's not something we're comfortable with. She said, "Well, think about it. We want to do it as like the real naked and afraid, where you're just out in the field." And we got off the phone and just looked at each other like, "What in the hell just happened?" And like I said, that was before we've had some other pitches where they wanted us to be the Duck Dynasty of the North. They wanted us to go out as rednecks in an old rusty pickup and investigate. And we said, I know they have to play things up. It's about ratings, but we're not willing to go quite that far. One pitch that we really loved was just going to be about the Great Lakes region and different weird things. And the fact that the few of us that were the core of the group had been friends since the first grade, and they kind of wanted to take it like Stranger Things. We were the kids from
Yeah.
that, which we kind of were, um, and develop. And that was going into COVID. And of course, as soon as things started to lock down, they said, "Sorry, but we can't even consider doing anything for production." But it's fun to get those calls. It's fun to sit and talk to the
Yeah.
production people. And through running the Michigan Paranormal Convention up here for 15 years, we've gotten to be friends with a lot of people in the reality television genre, and we've come to realize, behind the scenes, how things actually work and how they go, and just how cutthroat it can be. And it's, yeah, we've had these few experiences where we've learned, you don't get too excited when you get that phone call from LA saying, "Hey, we've got this great idea for a ghost hunting show, and we want to talk to you about it," because those are a few of the examples of things that really kind of seem to develop along, and then they went to shit for one reason or another. But yeah, we've gotten other pitches before here and there, and
Yeah.
they're always fishing for something but they need something on a level that is going to keep people's interest, and whether or not that's something that is reality, or if depending how far off they stretch it. We've had the good sense, I think, on a couple occasions to walk away from some projects that really would have made us look like complete idiots. uh, and like I say, the shows, and we've gotten to be friends with a lot of people, and the fame that they get, and the fun that they have doing the filming and all, that's great. But it's such a short segment of your life, and it's not something many people make a full-time living off of. So once you're done with the production group, you've got to go back to your everyday life. And
Hmm.
if you're running around naked in abandoned buildings screaming at things that aren't there, I'm going to have a hard time looking my coworkers in the eye after that.
Right. Well, it's funny you should say that. I had a guy on. I can't remember his name, but him and his production crew when they naked. It was called Parasets, the naked experiment.
Oh boy.
I had him on for a guest.
Excuse me. No.
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh, and I've said before, and I'm obviously a little bit older now. In the younger days, if somebody wanted us to go and do a nudist resort or something like that, I might consider that, but
Yeah,
not to do, basing a whole show, and they're just looking for that shock effect. And
yeah.
that wasn't something we were that interested in getting into.
Right.
So,
That's it. And come back to running around and mouth them down.
oh my God. Yeah. No, the ideas they
Nah.
come up with sometimes, but I guess they fish it out. And it was funny because after we turned them down, we went back and forth a little bit, and we just said, no, we're drawing the hard line. We'd love to do some work with you guys. We're not going to go that far, though. About 2 weeks later, they cast this big net out to, must have been any paranormal group they could find an email address for. There was this big mass email, and all of a sudden we started seeing people say, "Oh my God, you won't believe what we just got hit up for." And when it came out, and we said, I'm not going to mention the name of the production company right now, but we said, "Was it this company?" And yeah, how did you know? I said, and they just laughed and said, "Well, we dealt with them for a number of months before they decided to go this angle. And thank God the show never got picked up, didn't go anywhere. I don't know if they ever found a group to film even a sizzle reel with, but
Right.
as far as I know, it never made it onto network television at all. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's just when you think you've heard it all, you get something like that pitched to you. So, yeah, we did. Like I said, we've done a number of those. Sat and listened to some pitches and gone through, and
Yeah.
I think turning them down was probably for the best with anybody in our group. And
Right.
and now looking back at how the that reality TV thing's kind of sunk down now. There's not much out there for paranormal reality anymore.
Yeah.
It seems like everything's contracted, and uh, I can see where it'll come back at some point in time. I think there's still a hard enough audience out there that wants to see these things. But I think it was a good time to let all of these shows kind of simmer down and see what they can come up with a new iteration at some point in time. And we'll
Right.
sit back, and I do a podcast, you've got your podcast going, we've got content going out there for people that love the paranormal field. There's still plenty of live shows for people to go out, and events that they can go ghost on for the
Mhm.
fan base too. So as long as the interest is still there, I'm glad with seeing the networks kind of calm things down for a little bit.
Yeah. I, I usually get to a paranormal convention out here, the High State Foratory.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, up out there every year for the next 3 years. So
Yeah,
get
they
a
they
chance to
they
get out.
bring in a
It's
solid
not
lineup
fun.
for that.
Yeah.
It looks like it. I've always wanted to get down to that, and it's a time of the year that, with my normal career, I'm not able to get away easily, so I've never been able to sneak down to it. I have a
No.
lot of friends that go to it, especially from southern Michigan areas
Right.
that hit that up every year.
Yeah.
So,
And they have got at school too.
mm,
So I get to see them once in a while there. So
yeah. Yeah, we did the Michigan Paracon up here for 15 years. We did our last this past year, and it got to the point that it was taking up so much time. And I love doing it. Tim and I founded it along with Kuwait and Casino back in 2010. I guess we did our first
Wow.
year, and
Yeah.
yeah, there wasn't anything quite like it at the time. So it was a lot of there was a big learning curve. And we had fun going along through the years, but it got to the point where it would take 14 months to plan each event. So by the time one
Wow.
show was
Yeah.
happening, we were already 2 months into planning on the next, and it kind of got to the point where it was almost out of hand. And I mean,
Right.
we'd had almost everybody that had been on paranormal reality television had been here one year or another for it. The first year we had Nick, Zach, and Aaron from Ghost Adventures. That show was just really taking off at the time, and the conference just kept growing, 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 and it went from being a day and a half to being 3 days plus, pregame the night before that we took over a back bar in the casino and just kind of had fun panels going on. And it was to the point where the show would start on Thursday. On Monday, we'd have people showing up in town, and I'd see people walking around with previous year's T-shirts on and stop and talk. And a lot of people just really loved the event. It was a hard decision to kind of pull the plug last year, but we said we need some downtime. It's just gotten to be almost a full-time job in and of itself. And any other event planners out there that do a show like this, I'm sure will tell you the same thing. So yeah, we backed off a little bit from that, and we're going to do the same weekend. We've always done it the weekend prior to Labor Day weekend. We're going to do a smaller, limited to a couple hundred people event up here that we're doing a haunted history river cruise, which we've never done before.
Wow.
That's going to be fun. It's going to be a 2-hour cruise on the St. Mary's River by some of the more historic places around our area, which Sault Ste. Marie, where I'm at, is the oldest
Mm.
city in the state of Michigan. It was founded, the Europeans were here, settled it in 1668, but we had the Anishinaabe Native American culture was here for hundreds of years before that. So there's a lot of history up here. So we're going to kind of try and involve the area a little bit more. We've got
Yeah.
Amy Bruni's coming in for that,
Oh,
Rich
that's cool.
Estep,
I
and
love Amy. She's cool.
Amy's great. We've gotten to be good friends. So she's going to come up and do this with us. We're doing an investigation on a retired Great Lakes ore freighter, the Valley Camp. That's a museum here in town. Amy's covered it before on Kindred Spirits, and we've done investigations there before. So we're tying that in with it, and it's all running still under the MI Paracon banner, but it's a
Yeah.
lot more maintainable, I think, than what the full event got to be, and it gives us a little bit of downtime too. So
Right.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. We, like I said, we
Yeah.
still love doing it, but it was time to take a little break from the
Yeah.
we'd get 1,500 people in for Michigan Paracon, and
Mhm.
just it was a blast. But it was by the end of the weekend, it was time to take off, avoid people for 2 or 3 days, and just chill.
You say about the road cruise. Is it be a 3 hour tour? A 3 hour tour?
Get the Skipper and Gilligan there.
Yeah.
It's we have famous Suloc's boat tours here that go through the lock, ship, and canal and up and down. So we got a hold of the management there and said, hey, we want to do a haunted one. What would you think if we leased out one of your boats and your cruise for a 2-hour tour one night? And they
Yeah.
were all about it. So yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. Tim and I have to hop on that in the spring, and kind of we do a haunted walking tour here in the summer months, and
Uh-huh.
we have to rework our script to fit with our view from the river versus the view from walking down the same strip. So that's
Right.
going to be fun though. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to it.
Now,
Yeah.
now, to your left, you see this here, right? You see this.
Yeah, exactly. So we're
Yeah.
lucky. We've got so much history
I
here.
got a question for you.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be the MC?
That would be Tim.
Okay.
Say my paranormal partner in crime. He actually his real life job is a radio DJ. He
Okay. Yeah.
owns a small radio station in town, Bridge FM, and well, it's throughout the eastern Upper Peninsula, into lower Michigan a little bit. So he's got the gift of gab more than I do. So I can write down the history. I'm the historian for the group. So I'll dig in, do the research. I'll dig up the history, and of course, we've got so many ghostly legends that are just amazing around the area. And I'll say, Tim, here's how this went. Here are the stories, the ones that I was able to dig out, or to furthermore bring up some of the historical fact about it. And then Tim will put it in a script form, which he's got a great gift for, being in radio all of his life. So I'll provide a little color commentary on the side, and
Yeah.
we banter back and forth pretty well. But yeah, he's great at writing that up, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's a totally different perspective. If you've ever spent any time on the water, and I found this out when we bought a cabin on Lower St. Mary's River a number of years back, and I found out right away, just knowing things from land versus seeing them from being out on the water, it's a totally different perspective. And I found that out from getting lost on a sea-doo out in the river, trying to find out where in the hell I'd launched from, because I was totally unfamiliar with the area at the time.
How'd you get lost in a sea-doo?
Well, I found it eventually. I found it because our neighbor had a blue roof, and I knew to look for that. But you're out on this big body of water and trying to find the landscape, and I didn't have the markers down yet, so I zipped by it a couple times before I pulled back in.
Oh God!
But just knowing that perspective, it makes things going into this paranormal event on the water. Like
Yeah.
we know exactly what locations, what haunting legends. There's even some Great Lakes sea serpent lore from the area that we can tie in, but it's basing it out and knowing where you're at the time.
You thought about that. We have a cabin up in northern Pennsylvania, and when I used to go out with some friends, we go up the back way, and there's a certain place you gotta look out for to do a turn. There's an old house that's painted neon color.
Okay, that's hard to miss.
Yeah, turn left at a neon house.
Yeah, you can't miss that. No,
Yeah.
it's growing up up here in northern Michigan too. I mean, we're a small area. The entire Upper Peninsula is about a third of Michigan's landmass, but there's only 3% of the state's population that live up here. So I mean, we spent a lot of time in the woods, a lot of time fishing, hunting growing up, and it's so easy to get turned around if
I
you're out
bet.
in the woods and you don't know your markers. And we've done some investigations of some purportedly haunted areas that, yeah, you've got to make sure, especially if you're out there in the dark, that everybody on the team knows where your starting point is, where you're coming back to. I mean, it can get tricky. Yeah, and that's we've gotten called in too on a couple of potential Bigfoot sightings that we've had
Oh,
to go off into the woods in areas that we weren't quite familiar with. And yeah, if you don't know exactly where you're at and you're in miles and miles and miles of heavy forest and woodland, it's not hard to get turned around. And it's really easy for people to go missing up here. Luckily it doesn't happen often, but from time to time you'll have people out in national forests, in state forests and parks, that all of a sudden they're with their group and then they're gone and they're not
yeah.
seen. Unfortunately, there have been a number that have never been seen again.
Right.
And said,
Do you take your bear spray?
I don't. I know people that do. It's not that they're not up here. We get bears right here in town, in our backyard is against the woodlot. We have bears come through and rip down our feeders, but black bears,
Yeah.
for the most part, if you don't get between them and their cubs, you're not going to have an issue.
Right. Right.
And they're usually pretty docile creatures up here. They're junk creatures. They're looking for garbage to rummage through. But
Well, they probably have a Sasquatch where you can use.
well, yeah. It's yeah, no, like I said, I've spent a lot of time in the woods growing up. I've never carried pepper spray. I've never been worried about bears, but yeah, you
Yeah,
hear a crunch in the background, and you kind of wonder what it might be.
Hey, so I'm gonna patent that Sasquatch spray. Okay, I'm gonna patent that. So I'll go ahead.
Yeah, No, you make a killing off it right now. So Bigfoot's the big thing right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's been interesting to watch. Like we were talking about the whole TV genre, and that was something why I wanted to in paranormal justice. I made sure to add some cryptid because that
Yep. Yep.
whole it seems that wave on the TV thing just went from all ghosts and hauntings to getting into
Yep.
Bigfoot and now UFOs. So yeah, it's interesting to see how just society, pays attention to this and watches. And as we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, everybody got in on the ghost hunting thing when paranormal reality got so big. And now it seems like everything's shifting more to the UFO side of things. And you're seeing
Mm,
more, the ancient aliens and these different shows coming out.
yeah.
Um, it's interesting to watch how it shifted. And it's that same creepy crew, I think, that watches the ghost things that's kind of going over to that now too, and it's fun to
Right.
watch. It's fun
Mm,
to watch and see how people accept cryptids and UFOs versus ghosts.
mhm.
And we've always, when we were doing the conference here, we always had people here that could speak on cryptid topics. One year we had Linda Godfrey, who, God rest her, she passed a couple of years ago. We got to be good friends with, and Linda kind of blew the lid off the whole dogman phenomena. She
Mhm.
started as a reporter covering the Beast of Bray Road sightings,
Mhm.
and you would get people in for that. We had Stanton Friedman here a number of years, Travis Walton, different UFO people in speaking. And there was always, most of the ghost people we found were very crossover. The people that love ghosts and hauntings would also get into cryptids and were open minded about UFOs. But then every now and then we'd have people that were here just for UFO presenters and talks.
Mm.
And they didn't want anything to do with ghosts and
Right.
hauntings. They
Mhm.
didn't want anything to do with cryptids because that was just all folklore and BS. But the UFOs, they looked at more from a scientific aspect. And then you'll get people with the cryptid side of things. We've had people from most of the cryptid shows at one time or another, and gotten to be friends with people from Finding Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot.
Mhm.
Uh, those people look at it more, at least most of them, from a scientific aspect of this is just a creature that's not been found yet. They don't want to hear that there could be an interdimensional crossover or Bigfoot could be getting
Right.
dropped off by a UFO. They don't want to hear any of that, and they definitely don't want to hear about ghosts and things. So there's these standoffs, it seems, between the ufology crowd and the cryptid crowd, whereas I've always seen the ghost and phenomena crowd in that area seems to be more open-minded to all of these different aspects of the weird and the paranormal. It's kind of an interesting line that gets drawn there.
Well, that's for paranormal covers everything else.
Yeah, yeah, it can. It's that
Yeah.
broad base, but it just seems the ghost
Yeah.
people, for whatever reason, I think it's I have different views on it, I guess myself, but I think with people in the ghost and haunting side of things, it's so much harder to prove. Or let's just say right now where science is at, you can't prove it. So
Right.
it's really, we gather what evidence we can, be it through EVPs. We were talking a little bit before we went on about Estes sessions, and
Mm.
you can gather what you can. Can you prove that that's a deceased loved one, or is it a communication from an alternate
Maybe though.
dimension? It's yeah. There's things you can ask for. There's
Yeah.
different tells that you can hope for. But a skeptic's always going to be a skeptic, and they're not necessarily going to pick up on that. Whereas with UFOs, yeah, if the government has an actual crash craft, biological bodies from some type of aliens, yep, that's definitely provable then. Bigfoot, if somebody comes across a body at some point in time, I think that's what it would take to prove it. But they're looking for hard physical scientific evidence in
Hmm.
those fields. Where I think with us old school ghost hunters, and I've done cryptid research as well too. Not a lot in
Yeah.
the UFO field. I find it fascinating, but I think that is more, to the government side of things to a point. I have good friends that are involved in UFO research, but uh, I think they have certain physical evidence that they're trying to find, and they do come up with from time to time that can prove what they're looking for. I think on the ghost side of things, it's more a matter of belief.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at back to talk about Bigfoot. When we were about years ago, um, we heard this weird noises in the woods, and we picked up on audio.
Hmm.
It lasted for like 3 minutes long. I'll play here and see what you think about it.
Yeah.
Um, the very first part I saw you, we put the recorder out on the porch. It was the cousin porch. She
And this was at Hinsdale.
Yeah, here's the
Okay.
house. And the guys went out to fucking cigarette and heard the weird noise in the woods, so we started to put recorder on. And at the very beginning, you hear something mess with the recorder, shaking it around, and then you hear like a grunt. And then off in the woods, back to hear the wailing noises you'll hear.
Okay.
And we checked if like kennels or anything, if it does like dogs, stuff like that, kind of coyotes, foxes, or anything. So let me know what you think about it, because it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's we call it that like what the hell? So I'll play it for you. You know, earbird. Yeah, think you're something, Mr. Recorder.
That's interesting. It, the hardest
Yeah.
thing with outdoor investigating is the wind. Obviously, nature can mess with it, but that's kind of considering how active Hinsdale's house is known to be, and just to have anything odd like that happening in the background, even outdoors there. It sounds like there's something there.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's something there. You can hear the other birds and the wildlife, but then
Yeah.
there's, yeah. And that's whenever we get sent anything, if people have pictures from outdoors that they think is a ghost. I was working with law enforcement last year. I had an officer that had this very strange light beaming down in his this rural cabin. He caught it on a trail cam, and he thought it was a ghost. He thought it was something paranormal, and I said, "Man, that to me looks more like something that you would want somebody in the UFO field to take a look at. It looks like this very strange light coming down. There's tree limbs in front of it, so there's depth to it. It's not right in front of the camera lens." And I bumped it up and forwarded it to some people in MUFON to take a look at.
Hmm.
They didn't have a solid explanation for it. So I've
Right.
told this guy, and this is a law enforcement officer. He was a little bit freaked out, and I said, "Man, anything else like this happens, let me know. I'd love to look at it." But usually, you'll get pictures that we'll have people send in, or EVPs that people will send, and I'll do my best to evaluate it and give an honest answer. But when it's outdoors, there are so many things, so many factors you have to consider. Especially with photography. I don't know if you've ever done a lot outdoors on ghost hunts, but man, that can mess with just things like moisture in the air, the wind blowing anything through, if
Well,
you're
yeah.
getting pollen or bugs or anything closer to the lens. And a lot of people don't want to hear it when you give them the rational explanation, but you have to. I mean, that's what you're in the field for, not to frighten people and say, "Oh yeah, that's you've got a
Mm,
demon right there," when
yeah.
when it's just a drop of moisture in front of the lens. But yeah, outdoor investigating, that's just a whole different level. And things like that, if you have wind hitting a microphone at some angle, then you might be hearing voices and you get that pareidolia effect into it. So it's fun. I love investigating outdoors, especially older areas, ruins, some of these old buildings that we've been called into that are missing windows, and you've got the possibility of raccoons running through in the middle of an investigation
Yeah.
or things like that. But it's definitely a different challenge.
Yeah. We talk about UFOs and stuff.
Yeah.
So, the investigation in Centralia, um, and South Australia, I don't know if you heard of South Australia or not,
I'm
but,
not familiar with that. No.
well, I don't know if I can explain that. But if you look back in the very back there, I don't know if I can zoom in or not, but the little above the trees, when you zoom in,
Hmm.
you can see it there. It actually looks like something like that was caught over there. So, yeah, I don't have a zoom picture right now, but
Are
up
we
there,
talking a little bit off to left to center in the clouds?
yeah,
I
yeah,
can I can see something. I'd love to see a zoomed image of it.
yeah. Let me see what I get real quick. Uh, I could actually I'll drag it to the
Are there reports
um.
of hauntings in this area? Is that where you
Yeah,
go for
well, yeah,
investigation, or
it's a old um.
the cemetery looks cool. I love all the old headstones there.
All right, let me do bear with me here. My click
Yeah.
on the man, really thinking about
This,
lately.
this reminds me a lot of, there was an old cemetery, as I mentioned earlier, when we were kids growing up, that we used to. It's in the middle of, literally the middle of nowhere, about 9 miles out in the country from the town we grew up in,
Hmm.
and that's where we kind of cut our teeth on investigating outdoors as well. But yeah, we couple of different times, you'd get this heavy pea soup fog. It was just at the right elevation with the right conditions that you couldn't see in front of you. One night, I don't know what in the hell it was. We were doing an EVP session and we had this deep moan in the woods behind us. And we were
Ah,
probably 16, 17 at the time. And we had a few people out there with us that were just along. You heard these people scream and run to the car is all you could hear. And this was an old cassette recorder, of course, going off on. I don't know if it was somebody's cow that got loose that was behind us or if it was an actual entity of some sort. But this whole scene that you pulled up here reminds me of that so much. Just this
so
very rural looking cemetery scene. Yeah, I think I can see a spot in the clouds there.
yeah, I'm trying to. I could hear nice that there. I want. Oh, I got it. So I can zoom up. I just share the screen.
Okay, yeah.
Let me close this out.
So I'd have to really see that blown up to get an idea.
I'll do it now.
It's did you take that picture yourself, Scott?
No, my fellow investigator did.
Oh, did they see it at the time? Is that
No,
why they were
no.
just taking a picture of the cemetery and that showed up?
But yeah, I don't know if Evans. He called me up. He was getting a fly call above the cemetery. I'm like, well, first thing I thought was an angel or something like that. Well, that'd be cool, see an angel. And he goes, no, what do you see it? And then here it is. Can you see it now? I can zoom up now.
Yeah, I can see where it's at. You said you'd almost have to really do a deep analysis on that, pull it up.
Yeah, but what he
Okay.
did was he did like a different color scheme too, and like a negative, and he did what's it called? Different colors. You know what I mean? Where they use the
Looks
different. Yeah.
almost looks like a cigar shaped.
Yeah.
Seen
Yeah.
some of that UFO footage. It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
That's weird though. It's like I said though too. When you're outside, you don't know what is affecting your video.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot to do that. That'd be a next time, is it? There you go. I was looking at the cat. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Sorry.
just it's no, 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 it's that's cool. It's just blurry enough though that you can't really make out exactly what it
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah. So,
It,
but it's just illustrating us to the,
oh yeah, it's definitely worth noting. That's fun. Yeah, it's fun when you go out too to areas like that, like you we were just talking about too with possible Bigfoot or some cryptid thing at Hinsdale area. When you get those areas that you have overlapping activity, there's a place in on northern Lake Michigan, an old lighthouse, Seshwa Point. We always call it our Disneyland because we've had so much activity at this place. It's bizarre. You go in and they're the people who run the lighthouse, the historical society, believe that there are multiple spirits living there or inhabiting the grounds, but they've seen full body apparitions walking the property. They've seen them in the house. They've had smells. But on top of that, there have been UFO sightings around there. They've had a dogman sighting in that area. There's just something. I'm not a big believer on the portal theory of, just
yeah.
strange things flowing out. I know people that are,
Mm,
if I was going to be, that would be the one area that I would say, yeah, there's something there that all of this just high strangeness seems to happen in the same area.
right.
And whether it's to do with the water, with the history, it's another area that Native Americans fish in that area for hundreds, if not thousands of years. There's so much background there, and like I said, one person sent us a picture of the lighthouse was closed for the day, and you can make out very clearly this figure that's up in the light tower peering out. Just very, very clear evidence at this place. It's one of our favorite stories. We were all the main ghosts they believe to be Captain Willie Townsend. He was a
Mm-hmm.
lightkeeper there back in the early 1900s. And Captain Townsend liked to smoke cheap cigars, but his
Huh.
wife would not let him smoke them in the lighthouse. She'd make him go outside on the porch to smoke. So we decided the one investigation we did, and I don't even know how many times we've investigated this place. It's been a lot. We decided to bring Swisher Sweets. We're going to bring some cheap
Oh, yeah.
cigars. We're, you know what I'm
We,
talking about.
we do poker parties this weekend.
we're so we're bringing those. So we set up the cameras. We've got everything set inside, and this lighthouse is down a rural road. There's nothing else around it. I mean, if your batteries go dead, you forgot something, you have to turn around and drive 10 miles before you're near
uh,
anything. So yeah, we're all set up. We've got the cameras going. We've got all our equipment set. It's dusk. The sun's just starting to set, and here's 8 of us outside next to the lighthouse, lighting up Swisher Sweets. None of us are smokers. Keep that in mind. So he said, "This is for you, Captain Townsend. We just wanted to thank you for letting us be here, and we always love coming to your home." And we start taking draws off these cigars, and we all start hacking and coughing. And while this is going on, one of the guys says, "Did you just see that?" And one of the other people, I didn't see this particular, but a black form went by one of the windows. So then all of us are looking and hacking and smoking. And the next window over, you just see this. I can only describe it as a pitch black form. There's no coloration whatsoever. Pulls a curtain back, and realistically, it was maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and then the curtain comes back in. It felt like an eternity. We're all staring. You've got 8 sets of eyes looking at this one window, and you just see this wraith like form pull a curtain back and let it go back in. And we got so excited until we sat and said, well, who's going in? And then it's like, what in the hell? Well, you don't
I,
know what you're going to see on the other. We knew there were
uh,
no other people around. We knew nobody was in
I
the house.
was went towards it.
We, the first two in, so we were expecting it to be Captain Townsend because we're
Mhm.
saluting him, doing the whole cigar salute, and we're choking. And the first two guys in, because some of us had to observe the windows, some of us had to stay at the doors to make sure, we knew nobody was in there. But could somebody have been hiding somewhere that we didn't know about? Sure. So we're watching the doors to make sure nobody came out. Everybody, certain guys are watching the windows. The first two in, instead of, because one of the big phenomena there is the smell of cigar smoke in the lighthouse, happens often. Tourists smell it all the time. Instead of getting hit with that, the first two in the door get hit with this sickeningly sweet smell of lilac, like
Oh,
your grandmother's perfume, cheap
yep.
perfume. Like, oh my God, wow, that's not, so, well, that's not the captain then, we don't think. And talking to the head of the historic society that runs the lighthouse, she said, oh, no, that's Captain Townsend's wife. We really believe, they said, we've had that smell hit people before. She knew exactly what we were talking about, describing this sickeningly
Wow.
sweet lilac. She said, no, we've
Yeah.
gotten pictures of what we think to be her. And there was also a mother-in-law of one of the lightkeepers that lived there. She said, oh, she was probably pissed off that you were smoking cigars on the ground and just egging him on. So she's the
Right.
one that was probably looking at you. And it was just,
Yeah.
you keep trying to put these things together to weave a story out of what's going on. And in this case, we thought we were going to go in and have a run in with the captain. He's a figure in a lightkeeper's uniform seen often around the grounds there. We thought this was the chance we were going to hop in and see the captain live. And nope, instead of that, we feel that we were probably getting scolded by the captain's wife because we were back there smoking cigars where nobody had been able to smoke them for years and years. So that
Yeah.
was one of my all-time favorite encounters in paranormal research.
Yeah. I know the lilac smell very well. We had a lilac bush in our backyard growing up, so I know I smell very well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we were hacking and coughing and whatever we were doing, it drew out whatever entity
yeah.
was there that night. And that was the one time I've seen a full-on shadow type figure
Hmm.
like that, and then to have the physical manifestation to pull that curtain back and let it go back forward. It's the one time we've been that close. I mean, we were just feet away in the side yard. And it wasn't just one person. Like I said, the fact that there were 8 of us witnessing this lended a little bit more credence to, well, it wasn't just playing on somebody's eyes, or, nobody was hallucinating it. We saw this happen, and then it was followed up by the next piece of evidence, which would have been that blast of smell, that sickening lilac smell. Later on in the night, there was a security light in the yard that could only be turned on at a fuse box down in the basement. It was normally on a timer, but we had it turned off. And I was doing EVP work in the upstairs. We had 2 guys in the yard. They had no idea what we were saying at the time, but I said, if somebody from the captain's family is here, can you give us a sign? The guys radio in. They said, hey, is somebody down in the basement messing with that yard light? We said, no, nobody's in the basement. We're upstairs. Well, it just turned on. So, well, we just asked for a sign if somebody was there. We went down. The light only stayed on for a matter of seconds. We went downstairs. It was still off at the fuse box. So all of these little things you tie together just make for a great story, make for, it's that adrenaline rush you get, I guess, to keep going back in and keep doing this work.
All right. Over the years, I didn't have the luck with the full body, but a friend of mine, yeah, we were investigating a fire museum. But I saw a shadow back and forth playing, but I see a full one. But she thought me messing around, but I have a program we use on the computer. I'm setting it up, and she walking around checking her cameras, and she started, she's screaming and ran towards me. She, oh my gosh, I thought you over there. She actually saw a full body apparition of a fireman standing in the corner.
Oh wow, that's fun. See, and
Yeah,
that's we had that. I had one other. It, the only other time that I saw what I believe to be a full body apparition, we were at a historic ice arena, uh, old venue here in Sault Ste. Marie, and I looked across the rink, and right in the stairway there was a all I can describe it as is a guy in a greenish kind of plaid suit turned and walked down the stairs, and we ran to make sure nobody else was around. There was nobody over there. I didn't see him close enough to get features, but it didn't scare me. It was one of those things that you just stop for a minute, and it's almost a shock experience of I know nobody's there. This is what we're looking for. Didn't get anything unfortunately on camera from it, but it like you said, you go in time after time and have nothing happen on investigations, and then when these things hit and you get that adrenaline surge, and it reminds you why you're doing this, and it keeps interest in the field and keeps you
yeah,
going, keeps us young, I guess.
yeah. I'm thinking many years paranormal investigators, many gray hairs later.
Uh-huh. Well,
Uh,
no
well,
gray hairs later.
well, I usually shave my too, but I don't want to screw with it anymore. It's not past those days. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I
Oh,
guess said.
sorry, I just my son's just coming in. I gotta go. Gonna be helping out with homework. It's fun having a senior in the house at times, but
Yeah, I know about that. So yeah,
yeah.
I was sure help. I was sure help him with his math. So,
Math is the one thing he doesn't ask me to help with because that's not a strong suit. But yeah, we work through it, and
yeah,
12 years of school, and he's on the way out of the house after this year. So,
yeah.
you know, it-
It's crazy how they do division stuff now. They do
it's
all
different.
you, and I would have lost sure it's easier to guess it. What's they supposed to? You have to a line here, a line here, a line
Yeah,
here, and they
I
call
can't.
number. Like,
I
what
can't.
the?
I can't do the do. The do stuff is beyond me, and that's I told
Uh,
him. I said you're
I
gonna
was
have to
like,
ask your
yeah.
teacher. So
So I started teaching like that, and I guess the teacher got mad. I'm like, well, that was they do what she
yep,
says.
I
So,
agree. Yeah, you do what you do
uh,
to get the grade. I can't necessarily help you with new math. So
right,
well,
right.
on that note, though, Scott, I thank you for having me on. It's been a
I like
blast.
that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I'll
have to
get
go.
strong again. And
Oh yeah, yeah. Give me a shout anytime.
yes, I love talking to all like-minded people when it comes to this. So,
It's
yeah,
always it's always and popped on different shows here and there. It's always
yeah,
fun talking to people that have been in the field for a long time, though, like you and I both have, and kind of with some of the same aspects in the background of it. So
right.
it's been a blast. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I say,
Hey,
give me a shout anytime. Thanks so much for having
you,
me.
yeah, you want to give a shout out for your radio show?
Yeah, we do bi-monthly Creaking Door Paranormal Radio, and we try and get different people, in the paranormal field, everything from UFOs to cryptids and anything weird and strange. We've done a little bit of serial killer stuff here and there too that we've had people on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's on my paranormal partner in crime, Tim's radio station, bridgefm.net. It's on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere that you find your podcasts. We don't do a video aspect; it's strictly audio because
Mm-hmm.
we don't clean up well, and we don't want to. We don't need people looking down on us yet. Tim keeps threatening to go video, but yeah, that's Creaking Door at bridgefm.net. The books are all on Amazon. We've got Great
Mm-hmm.
Lakes Monsters and Mysteries, Supernatural Haunt, and then yeah, I guess my latest that I put out last year, Paranormal Justice. I've had a lot of fun putting that together, it kept me sane during COVID is when I wrote it.
There you
It took about 3 years, a lot of research. It was just something I was always interested in, how paranormal cases that end up in front of the courts,
go. Right.
you've got that line that's drawn of, well, that's not real. How can we, what happens when that goes up in front of a jury or in front of a judge, or just to legally
Yeah.
bind people with court decisions when the paranormal or cryptids are involved.
Yeah.
Curses, we cover a lot in that. So it was a
Right.
fun project. That's available on
Yeah.
Amazon. You can check it out there.
Yeah.
And we're
I'm
working.
right. Yep. So also up in the corner, there's a QVC code
Oh, cool.
that
Yeah.
if you do that, it'll take you to your page to buy the book.
Yeah, check it
So
out. And, you can hit me up
and
with any questions on Facebook, on X. Author Brad Blair at Gmail is a direct email you can catch me on too. So, yeah,
yeah.
if you've read the book, I'd love to hear your feedback on it. And
Hmm.
we're working on another regional history / haunting book right now. The way
Cool.
this winter's going, it's probably going to be another year before we get that out. But
Yeah.
yeah, watch for
Yeah.
that too. And we'll be, of course, always posting on social media with any of these projects we got going on.
Awesome. Well,
Awesome.
Brad, thank you for coming on. It's my
Oh.
pleasure having you on. I'll get you back on again. I love talking to you. It was so fun.
No, it's been a good time, Scott. I'm off to have a piece of pizza and work on homework now.
There
So
you go. Have a slice for me.
I will. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Too. Good night. Too. Good night.